My name is Megan. I work as an accountant and live a peaceful life in the suburbs of the American South with my husband Tom and our 6-year-old daughter Lily. Work keeps me busy, but I've always treasured time with my family above all else. My younger sister Nicole is a career woman working as a marketing manager. Her husband Brandon is in real estate sales, and they're both the dedicated, work-focused type. Their daughter Sophie is such a sweet child, and we'd made it a habit to get together for dinner once a month as a family. The thing is, Nicole was really busy with work and often left Sophie in the care of her babysitter, Amber. Amber was a pleasant woman, and Nicole trusted her completely. I'd met her a few times myself, and she certainly seemed capable and reliable. Last month, when I visited Nicole's house, she mentioned something that caught my attention about Sophie. She said Sophie had become quieter lately. My sister laughed it off, suggesting it might be a shy phase, but to my eyes, Sophie's smile seemed less frequent than before. Still, I figured it was just part of growing up and didn't think too deeply about it. Then one evening, I got a call from Nicole. She had to go to Texas for 3 days on a business trip. Brandon also had another trip scheduled for the same time, and she asked if I could watch Sophie. Normally she'd ask Amber, but Amber wasn't available that week. I agreed without hesitation. Lily would be thrilled, and I was looking forward to spending time with Sophie. Tom happily agreed too, and over the weekend we cleaned out the guest room and got everything ready for Sophie's arrival. The day before the trip, I went to Nicole's house to pick up Sophie. When she opened the front door, Sophie was standing there quietly, holding a small pink suitcase. While Nicole rushed around packing last-minute items, Sophie waited patiently beside her. The image struck me as odd. For a 4-year-old, she was far too quiet. "Sophie, are you excited? Lily's been waiting and waiting for you." When I spoke to her with a smile, Sophie gave a small nod. But her expression showed none of the anticipation or excitement you'd expect from a child. Nicole laughed and said, "She's been so quiet lately." Makes things easier, but a small sense of unease settled in my chest. During the car ride home, Sophie sat in the back seat, silently staring out the window. When I glanced at her in the rearview mirror from time to time, her small profile was expressionless. When we got home, Lily came running to the door shouting, "Sophie." Usually the two of them would embrace and squeal with delight, but that day Sophie took a step back. Confusion crossed Lily's face, but she quickly recovered with a smile and said, "I'll show you your room," before dashing up the stairs. Sophie followed slowly behind. While preparing dinner, I listened to the sounds of the children upstairs. I could hear Lily's bright voice, but barely any sound from Sophie. Something was wrong. But I still didn't know what. On Sophie's first night at our house, I grew increasingly uneasy about her behavior. At dinner, Sophie sat at the table with a straight back, tense as if taking some kind of test. When I served her a small plate of chicken and mashed potatoes, Sophie said in a tiny voice, "Thank you." That politeness was far too perfect for a 4-year-old. When Lily chirped, "Sophie, this is really good," Sophie only nodded slightly. Throughout the meal, she barely made a sound, didn't spill anything, and behaved like a little adult. When Tom gently said, "Sophie, you can eat more. Don't hold back," Sophie's hand trembled for a moment. Then she answered, "I'm full." But more than half the food still remained on her plate. After dinner, when Lily tried to take her hand saying, "Sophie, let's play in my room. I have lots of dolls," Sophie flinched back as if frightened. Lily's face clouded with confusion. I told them both, "She's probably tired. Let's take it easy today." That night, when bath time came, something truly strange happened. When I said, "Sophie, time for your bath. I'll help you wash up," Sophie suddenly said firmly, "I'll do it myself." Even when I explained that bathing alone might be dangerous, Sophie stubbornly refused. "But Sophie, you're still little and it could be unsafe." You can't do shampoo all by yourself, can you? When I tried to gently persuade her, tears welled up in Sophie's eyes. Please, let me bathe alone, she said, her voice almost pleading. Confused, I decided to respect her wishes. However, I waited outside the door so I could go in immediately if needed. When Sophie came out of the bath, she kept her body completely covered with the towel and absolutely refused to let anyone see her change clothes. When Lily innocently approached saying, "Sophie, let's put on our pajamas together," Sophie shouted, "No." Lily stopped in surprise and looked up at me. Her eyes showed hurt. "Lily, Sophie's just shy. Give her a minute." I soothed Lily, but alarm bells were beginning to ring in my mind. It wasn't normal for a 4-year-old to be this resistant to being seen changing. But I still didn't want to admit what it might mean. Maybe she was just shy. That's what I told myself. The second day, Sophie remained just as quiet. At breakfast, she barely ate. When Lily asked, "Sophie, what do you want to play today?" she only answered in a small voice, "I don't know." Before leaving for work, Tom whispered to me, "Is she okay?" I'd been wondering the same thing. During the day, I checked work emails in the living room while keeping an eye on the two of them. Lily tried hard to engage Sophie in play, but Sophie just sat on the edge of the sofa with her hands folded on her lap. Her posture was like a prisoner waiting for something. "Hey Sophie, want to draw? Or play with blocks?" Even when Lily brought out the box of colored pencils, Sophie shook her head saying, "No thanks." Disappointment crossed Lily's face. I got up and sat between them. "Sophie, what's wrong? Don't you feel well?" When I put my hand on her forehead, Sophie's body went rigid. No fever. But her body seemed to be trembling with fear. When I removed my hand, Sophie relaxed slightly. That afternoon, while Lily was playing outside, I thought about calling Nicole. But I hesitated about whether to worry my sister during her business trip. Sophie wasn't sick or injured. She was just not normal. Was that enough reason to call her mother back? In the end, I didn't make the call. I still don't know if that was the right decision. On the second night, before bed, Lily came to my bedroom. With a more serious expression than usual, she spoke to me in a hushed voice. "Mom, can I ask you something about Sophie?" I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled my daughter onto my lap. "What is it?" Lily hesitated for a moment, then said, "Today, when Sophie was changing, I saw something for just a second. I didn't mean to look." My heart started racing. "What did you see?" She had strange bruises on her arm. Lots of them. Hearing Lily's words, I felt like I couldn't breathe. Bruises. Multiple ones. On her arm. It's not unusual for children to get bruises from falling or bumping into things. But considering Sophie's abnormal behavior, another possibility began to emerge. "Where did you see this?" "When?" "At lunchtime, in the guest room. When Sophie was changing her shirt, her sleeve rolled up and I saw." Sophie got really flustered and hid them. I hugged Lily tight. My daughter's small body was warm in my arms. Sophie should be able to feel safe and held like this too. "Mom, did Sophie get hurt somewhere?" I couldn't answer Lily's innocent question. Hurt. Part of me hoped that's all it was, but somewhere in my heart, I couldn't deny a darker possibility. "I don't know. But tomorrow, I'll take a better look." After sending Lily back to her room, I sat alone in the living room with my head in my hands. Sophie's abnormal quietness, the way she avoided contact with people, her excessive refusal to be seen changing, and now, the existence of bruises. These fragments were beginning to form one terrifying picture. But I still couldn't be certain. If my imagination was wrong, I'd needlessly worry my sister. But if something really was happening, I needed to act immediately. That night, I barely slept. Thinking about Sophie sleeping in the next room made my chest tighten. Tomorrow, I had to find out the truth somehow. That's what I resolved. On the morning of the third day, I came up with a plan. Let's go to the pool. If she changed into a swimsuit, I could check Sophie's body. If there really were bruises, I could see how extensive they were. And if they were signs of abuse, I could take action immediately. After breakfast, I said in a bright voice, "Hey, it's such nice weather today. How about we all go to the pool?" Lily's face lit up. Yay! Pool. But Sophie's face turned pale. I don't want to go to the pool. Sophie's voice was trembling. Seeing that reaction deepened my suspicions even more. Normally, a 4-year-old would be delighted to hear about going to the pool. But Sophie's eyes showed clear fear. Why not? The pool is fun. You can play with Lily. When I asked as gently as possible, Sophie looked down and answered in a small voice. I don't have a swimsuit. At those words, I felt something close to certainty. It wasn't because she didn't have a swimsuit. She was afraid to wear one. She was terrified of her body being seen. It's okay, Sophie. We still have a swimsuit from when Lily was little. A cute pink one. I bet it'll look great on you. I deliberately kept my voice bright. Sophie opened her mouth as if to say something, but in the end said nothing and gave a small nod. That resigned expression tore at my heart. During the drive to the community pool, Lily sang happily in the back seat. But Sophie, once again with that expressionless face, stared out the window. Her profile visible in the rearview mirror looked like a prisoner being led to execution. When we arrived at the pool, Lily pulled my hand and ran ahead. Sophie walked slowly behind. At the facility entrance, I picked up locker keys for the two of them and headed to the women's changing room. The changing room was nearly empty since it was a weekday morning. In the spacious area lined with benches, there was only one elderly woman besides us. I chose a spot as far back and private as possible. Okay, let's get changed. I pulled 2 swimsuits out of my bag. Lily started taking off her clothes with practiced ease. But Sophie just stood there, not moving. Sophie, want me to help? When I approached, Sophie took a step back. I can do it myself, she said in a voice almost too quiet to hear. But at 4 years old, it's still hard, isn't it? Let me help you. I said this and gently reached for the hem of Sophie's t-shirt. Sophie's body went rigid. But I wasn't backing down anymore. I had to know the truth. Lily, help Sophie change. At my words, Lily, who had already changed into her swimsuit, came running over. Okay. Sophie, I'll help you. Lily's small hands lifted Sophie's t-shirt. In that instant, Sophie shouted, "No," but it was too late. Mom! Look at this. Lily's voice echoed through the changing room. When I turned around, time seemed to stop. Sophie's back and arms were covered with countless bruises. Some were fresh and purple, others had yellowed with age. But that wasn't all. On the lower part of her back, several small circular scars were lined up in a row. Seeing their shape, I felt nauseous. They were burn marks from cigarettes being pressed into her skin. I could feel all the blood draining from my body. My knees shook, and I could barely stand. These weren't bruises. They weren't injuries. These were clear signs of abuse. Don't look. Sophie cried out, desperately trying to cover her body with her clothes. That's when I noticed similar scars on her arms too. Long, thin red lines were probably marks from being hit with something. From the different colors of the bruises, I could tell this hadn't happened just once or twice, but had been repeated many times. I reached out with trembling hands to hold Sophie, but she backed away in fear. Don't touch me. I can't tell. If I tell, they'll hurt me even more. Sophie burst into tears. Her small 4-year-old body was trembling with fear. Seeing her like that, I couldn't hold back my own tears. How much terror and pain had this little child endured? Sophie, who did this to you? Who? I knelt down, trying to meet her eyes. But Sophie just shook her head violently. I can't say, if I tell. Hearing those words, I understood everything. She'd been threatened. Silenced. And the fear of breaking that silence was keeping this child quiet. Lily was crying behind me. My daughter was also shocked by what she was seeing. I took a deep breath, trying to regain my composure. Right now, what I needed to do was protect this child. Sophie, it's okay now. I won't let anyone hurt you anymore. I'll protect you, I promise. I gently embraced Sophie. This time she didn't resist. Her small body trembled against my chest. As I stroked her back, I made a vow in my heart. I would protect this child. No matter who stood in the way. Lily, help Sophie put her shirt back on. We're not going to the pool. We're going somewhere else now. My voice was surprisingly calm. But inside, anger and sadness were swirling. Lily silently obeyed and helped Sophie put on her t-shirt. I quickly got both of them dressed and left the changing room. At the pool reception desk, I said something urgent had come up and we left the facility. Walking toward the parking lot, I'd already decided on my next move. When I was getting her into the car, Sophie said in a small voice, I'm sorry. You have nothing to apologize for, Sophie. You're not the one who did anything wrong. I looked at Sophie's eyes in the rearview mirror. A faint glimmer of relief appeared in them. For the first time, I felt like she was beginning to trust me a little. As I started the car, I picked up my cell phone. There was only one destination. The hospital. I had to get to a general hospital with a pediatrics department right away. Mom, where are we going? Lily asked anxiously. To the hospital. We're getting Sophie checked out. My voice was quiet but filled with determination. As I drove, various thoughts swirled through my mind. Who had done this to Sophie? Did Nicole know? And why hadn't anyone noticed until now? Sophie in the back seat wasn't crying anymore. She just stared out the window. In her profile, I thought I saw something that wasn't resignation. Maybe it was hope. The drive to the hospital usually took about 20 minutes. But that day, it felt like an eternity. Every time we stopped at a red light, I checked on Sophie in the rearview mirror. She was still there. It was going to be okay now. I would protect her. When I parked in the hospital lot, my hands were still shaking. But my mind was made up. Whatever happened next, I would protect this child. That was my responsibility as family. Come on, let's go. I took Sophie's hand. This time, she squeezed mine back. The feeling of that small, warm hand gave me strength. Lily held my other hand. The three of us walked toward the hospital entrance together. When I explained the situation at the hospital reception desk, the nurse's expression changed completely. She immediately took us to an examination room. While we sat in the waiting room, Sophie curled up small on my lap. Lily sat quietly beside me, occasionally stroking Sophie's hand. After about 10 minutes, a young female doctor appeared. This way, please. Once in the exam room, the doctor spoke to Sophie with a gentle smile. Hello. I'm Dr. Carter. Can you let me take a look at you? Sophie gripped my hand tightly. I whispered in her ear. It's okay. No one's going to hurt you anymore. The doctor is here to help you. Slowly, Sophie began to remove her clothes. The moment Dr. Carter started examining her, the doctor's expression grew stern. I could see her hand holding the stethoscope trembling slightly. Back, arms, thighs. Countless bruises and scars covered Sophie's small body. Dr. Carter carefully examined each one, taking photographs and recording them. During that time, I bit my lip to hold back tears. "Mrs. Megan, could we talk for a moment?" After the examination was finished and Sophie was dressed again, Dr. Carter called me into the hallway. I asked Lily to stay in the exam room with Sophie. In the hallway, Dr. Carter said with a serious expression, "These are clearly signs of abuse. And it's been repeated over a long period of time. The circular wounds on her back are cigarette burns. The bruises on her arms and legs are at various stages. By law, I'm obligated to report this to the police and Child Protective Services." I nodded. "Please do. Report it immediately." Dr. Carter began making calls right away. I sank into a chair in the hallway. Various scenarios of what would happen next flashed through my mind. 30 minutes later, 2 police officers and 1 CPS worker arrived. I was taken to a separate room for questioning. I explained in as much detail as possible the circumstances of taking in my niece, Sophie's behavior, and what I discovered at the pool today. "Have you contacted the child's parents?" An older female officer asked. "My sister is on a business trip in Texas right now, and I can't reach her. I've called several times, but she's not answering. She must be in meetings. I've also tried to contact my brother-in-law, but I can't get through to him either. In fact, I'd been trying to call both Nicole and Brandon repeatedly since we were on our way to the hospital. But neither of them answered. I'd sent messages too, but they hadn't even been read." "What's the babysitter's name?" "Amber. I think it was Amber Johnson. I heard my sister mention it several times." The officer made a note of something. "Understood. We'll start an investigation immediately." After that, it was decided that a child psychologist would interview Sophie. I waited in the waiting room with Lily. My daughter looked anxiously at the exam room door from within my arms. About an hour later, the psychologist came out. Her expression was somber. Sophie gradually started talking to us. The person who abused her was the babysitter, Amber. I gasped. Amber. That pleasant, capable woman. According to Sophie, when her parents weren't home, Amber would physically abuse her. If she didn't do as she was told, she'd be hit, and if she cried, cigarettes would be pressed into her skin. And she was threatened that if she told anyone, she'd never see her mommy and daddy again. As I listened to the psychologist's words, rage burned inside me. How could anyone do such things to such a small child? "We'll secure Amber Johnson immediately," the officer said. "Do you know her address?" I gave them Amber's address that I'd heard from my sister. The officer immediately began communicating via radio. However, an hour later, shocking news came in. Amber was no longer at her home and had disappeared. According to neighbors, she'd left the night before with large suitcases. She ran away. When I asked, the officer nodded with a stern expression. "That's highly likely. But we will find her." That evening, I finally got a call from Nicole. I explained everything. My sister's voice was disbelieving at first, but gradually began to shake. "That can't be. Amber. I can't believe it. I trusted her. Nicole, come home right away. Sophie needs you." My sister answered through tears. "I'm coming back right now. The next flight." "Megan, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." After hanging up, I also tried to contact Brandon. But again, I couldn't reach him. Puzzled, I decided to focus on Sophie as the top priority for now. That night, the hospital decided to keep Sophie overnight for observation. Lily and I stayed with her. In the hospital bed, Sophie slept with a peaceful expression for the first time. The next afternoon, I got a call from the police. They said that as the investigation progressed, a shocking fact had come to light. I was called to the police station, where I learned the truth. As a result of our investigation, we found that Amber and Brandon were having an affair. At the female officer's words, I was speechless. Brandon. My sister's husband. Furthermore, from Brandon's cell phone records, it appears highly likely that he was aware of Amber's abuse. In fact, we believe he looked the other way. Why? My voice was trembling. He was probably afraid the affair would be exposed. If he reported Amber, their relationship would come to light. So he did nothing, even knowing his own daughter was suffering. In that moment, something inside me broke. It wasn't anger or sadness. It was just a deep disappointment in humanity itself. A man who chose to protect an affair over his own daughter. A woman who betrayed that man's wife and abused a young child. Where's Brandon now? We're currently searching for him. It's possible he fled with Amber. But that prediction was wrong. That evening, Brandon turned himself into the police station alone. He confessed everything. The affair, looking the other way on the abuse, and his own cowardice. The next day, Nicole rushed to the hospital. My sister looked completely exhausted, with deep circles under her eyes. She sat down beside Sophie's bed and began to cry out loud. Sophie. I'm sorry. Mommy couldn't protect you. Sophie saw her mother's tears and touched Nicole's cheek with her small hand. Mommy, don't cry. Later, Nicole met with Brandon at the police station. I went with her. In the visitation room, Brandon prostrated himself, begging for forgiveness. Nicole, I'm truly sorry. But Nicole said only one thing in a cold voice. Get out. Don't ever appear before us again. There was no anger or sadness in that voice. Only complete rejection. 6 months have passed. Since that day, our lives have changed dramatically. But little by little, surely, things have been moving in a better direction. Nicole went through with divorce proceedings, which were finally finalized last month. Brandon lost most of his assets and his job. The fact of his affair and looking the other way on abuse became known throughout the town where he lived. Now he's living alone in a small apartment. Occasionally, letters of apology arrive at Nicole's place, but my sister throws them away without even opening them. Amber was arrested 2 weeks after her escape in a neighboring state. She was indicted for child abuse and received a prison sentence last month. When photographs of Sophie's injuries were presented as evidence in court, sighs came from the gallery. Amber is now in a state prison. I've heard that among inmates, those who abuse children are the most despised. Her prison life won't be easy. Sophie now goes to counseling twice a week. At first, she couldn't even open her mouth in front of the counselor. But with time, she's gradually beginning to open up. Last week's session was the first time she voluntarily talked about the abuse. The counselor said it was significant progress. Nicole has drastically reduced her work. She quit her job as marketing manager and now works part-time as a consultant. Her income has decreased, but she says she has no regrets. Compared to time with Sophie, my career doesn't matter at all. After nearly losing her, I finally realized what's truly important. When my sister said that, I hugged her. Nicole herself was deeply wounded too. She suffered from guilt over being betrayed by people she trusted and not being able to protect her daughter. But she's trying to recover. For Sophie's sake, and for her own. Sophie now comes to our house 3 times a week. Her bond with Lily deepens day by day, and the two have become like real sisters. The other day, when I saw them laughing and chasing each other in the yard, I almost cried. Sophie's smile. It was a sight I couldn't have imagined 6 months ago. Yesterday afternoon, Sophie said to me, Aunt Megan. She's recently started calling me by my first name. The counselor said that was also a sign of recovery. That day, if you hadn't taken me to the pool, I wonder what would have happened to me. I pulled Sophie onto my lap and gently stroked her hair. But we did go to the pool. And now you're here. That's what matters. Sophie nodded slightly. Then she continued. I was scared of Amber. Daddy Brandon didn't look at me either. But you protected me. Hearing those words, my chest grew warm. Family protects each other, Sophie. Whether you're related by blood or not, real family means people who have the will to protect each other. When Nicole came to pick her up that evening, my sister hugged me tight. Megan, thank you so much. If you hadn't noticed that day. Tears cut off her words. I gently hugged my sister back. From now on, we'll protect her together. Nicole, you and me and the children. As a real family. Outside the window, Lily and Sophie walked hand in hand toward the car. Their laughter echoed in the autumn dusk. The wounds may never completely heal. But with love and time, people can always recover. Sophie's smile proves that. And I vowed once again. I would protect these children no matter what. Because that's what real family is.